Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 370 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, one of my best friends in the entire world. It is of course Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, bro. How are you?
That was such a dead reaction to the nice introduction with all my energy.
Hey, you know what? I'm doing great. I'm about to jump off the ceiling, man. What's going on? What's going on with you, Joe?
Not much, my friend. That's more like it, though. That's the energy we need. Diving straight into the review part of the show as ever. We're going to start here with a card that took place on Friday. It was on Fight TV, if I'm not mistaken. We had Sonny Edwards move to 19-0, a successful defense of his IBF flyweight world title against Felix Alvarado, former champion, now 38-3. He had 33 KOs to his name. Alvarado was a proven banger at world level, but Sonny Edwards just too good, too clever. I think Alvarado maybe won a couple of rounds. It seemed like he was getting to Edwards late on, but Edwards is such a talent, and I've said it time and time again. Brilliant fighter, obviously from my hometown, Croydon. So yeah, good stuff for him. Friend of the show. On the undercard, we had Jack Bateson lose his he's now 17-1. I should mention, by the way, Sonny Edwards, obviously unanimous decision. I'm not sure if I said that over 12 rounds. Jack Bateson loses his He was TKO'd in the 12th and final round against Shabazz Massoud, who's now 11-0. Somebody's had to go. Jack Bateson was the underdog for a reason. This guy, Shabazz Massoud, there's been a lot of talk about him, a lot of hype about him for quite a long time, and I think he's proven it there on the big stage, really. Over 12 rounds, obviously. World title undercard. Good amateur in the opposite corner in Jack Bateson, and a lot of people who hadn't heard of Massoud were wondering how he could be the favourite. Well, he's proven how good he is to everyone, I think is the best way to say. It was for the WBA Intercontinental Super Bantamweight title. Bateson down twice in that 12th round. Gutted for him. But yeah, brilliant win for Shabazz Massoud. Also on the undercard, we had Thomas Essomba, now 11-8 with a draw. He lost a split decision over 12 rounds to Marcel Braithwaite. So crazy, really. I mean, these fights obviously were at the lower weights, Superfly, Fly, Super Bantam. They all ended up going to the final round of the fight. So we saw 36 rounds of boxing there in 3 fights. Even though Bateson got knocked out in the 12th and final round, we still got to that 12th and final round. Thomas Essomba was the favourite against Marcel Braithwaite, who's now 14-3. It should be mentioned that Braithwaite failed to make the weight, by the way, and it was a final eliminator for the British title. It was supposed to be. Braithwaite, I think, was a little bit better than what we thought. I think he fought with a good game plan. And Thomas Essomba, I just thought maybe the experience was on his side and stuff like that. Way better than his record suggests. And maybe he'd get the win. The bookies felt the same. It was always a fight that I think was going to go the distance. That is what I expected to happen. I thought Essomba would win on points, but Marcel Braithwaite managed to clutch it. That split decision there. Moving out to this one, it took place at the York Hall in Bethnal Green. Also on the Friday, it was live on BT Sport. Gonna mention the 3 main fights. David Adelaide now 10-0, a knockout in round 2 against Elvis Garcia, now 9-4. He was down 3 times in the second round. Garcia came to give it a go a little bit of a tough guy. But, it was never going to end well for him. We had friend of the show, Willie Hutchinson, move to 15-1, a TKO there in round 7 against Luca Spadaccini, who's now 8-5 with 3 draws. Spadaccini down prior to the stoppage. Nick Ball as well in the main event, now 17-0, a knockout in the very first round against Jesus Rubio, who's now 21-2 with 3 draws. Down 3 times Rubio for the WBC silver featherweight title. I expected more from the Mexican. He was a big puncher from what his record suggested. I know he didn't have much notice, but to be stopped in a round was a massive statement really for Nick Ball, and kind of a bad look for Rubio. Obviously, Mexicans have got that reputation for being super, super tough. And because he could bang to a decent enough level, there was a lot of people fancying him to get the upset. We've got to remember Nick Ball's only 5'2", and he was giving away a lot of height there. He had the disadvantage of being the much smaller guy. And yeah, I fancied Rubio potentially. I didn't think, I wasn't going to put my life savings on it, but I felt that for 12-1 for the knockout was quite a decent price. But obviously Nick Ball smashed him really, and that's so impressive. And it was never a fight that was going to go the distance, even though these guys are featherweights. They're kind of the smaller guys really. But Nick Ball, such an exciting fighter, but only 5'2" at featherweight. It's crazy. There's other featherweights out there that are around about the 5'10" mark. So much smaller guy, but yeah, very exciting to watch. Moving out now to the Manchester Arena in Manchester. This one was live on Sky. It was on the Saturday. Let's talk about the undercard. A upset win for Jordan Ellison, the journeyman, now 14-44 with 3 draws. He was able to beat on points over 4 rounds the previously undefeated Dylan Chima, now 7-1. It's a tough one really when you're only a couple fights into your pro career. I say a couple, Dylan Chima 7-0, but you could tell like Dylan Chima is not fully developed in terms of his boxing skills and his, in terms of being a fully fledged boxer just yet. I think he's still very much a work in progress, learning on the job, and to throw him in with a very seasoned journeyman, in a 4-rounder, that's so risky, because those 4-rounders, man, if you lose one round, like you lose the first round, you've got to win all 3 of the next, and it's just like they're very risky. So if you throw a guy in who's not very experienced, doesn't have a big amateur background, you throw him in with a seasoned, tough journeyman like Jordan Ellison is, this is what can happen. So his career has temporarily been derailed. Elsewhere on the undercard, we had Vidal Riley move to 7-0, a TKO in the 3rd round against the previously undefeated Ross McGuigan, now 3-1. We had Fraser Clark go the distance, I believe, for the first time in his career. Brilliant bet this one was. I mentioned it last week. Fraser Clark to go the distance against Kamil Sokolowski. Felt it was always going to happen. He didn't really hurt Sokolowski, I don't think, throughout the contest. So Fraser Clark 4-0. Kamil Sokolowski now 11-27 with 3 draws over 6 rounds. You could more than double your money with that one there. So that was a fantastic bet. What else did we have? This was a bit tough to take actually. Tyler Denny, he's now 15-2 with 3 draws. A successful defense there of his English middleweight title against friend of the show Bradley Ray. Gutted for Bradley Ray. Spoke to him after the fight. Seems like he's in a decent place. Seems like he's not like down in the dumps and taking it very, very tough at this stage anyway. Hopefully he can keep his head up. Very, very nice guy. Everyone likes Bradley Ray. But yeah, he was just outgunned really by Tyler Denny, who who showed up and boxed a brilliant fight. Bradley Ray did hurt Tyler Denny late on to the body, and Denny was in lots and lots of trouble, and Denny also had a point deducted in round 9, I believe it was, but none of that could get Bradley Ray close to winning on the cards when it did go the distance over 10 rounds. Gutted for Bradley Ray, like I say, really would have liked to see him push on. I fancied him to win on points, and yeah, that was a bet lost. But yeah, hopefully, like I say, can keep his head up and come again and learn from that. He's still young, Bradley Ray. Elsewhere on the card, we had Natasha Jonas as well, moved to 13-2 with a draw. It was a unanimous decision over 10 2-minute rounds there against Marie-Eve Decaire, who's now 18-2. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see much of this fight. It was for the WBC, WBO and IBF World Super Welterweight titles. Obviously a unification there. Jonas had 2 belts, Decaire had 1 belt. I think she had the IBF, if I'm not mistaken, could be wrong. But anyways, Decaire, as far as I'm aware, was dealt with quite easily by Clarissa Shields, and then Natasha Jonas obviously got in there with Decaire, and from what I saw, the bits I did see, it looked like it was a much tougher fight than people expected it to be. Yeah, I can't remember the scorecards off the top of my head, to be honest with you, but I think there might have been a couple of close ones, I think. And yeah, I mean, Natasha Jonas, as we know, not really a true 154. I mean, she's small at the weight. We saw Decaire, the much bigger lady in stature, and yeah, Jonas at times was really struggling to deal with Decaire. I think it was late on that Decaire came on strong, from my memory, from the little bits I did see. But yeah, I'm not sure what you can read into that. I'd like to see Jonas get back in with Terry Harper. I think that'd be a good fight again. But yeah, I mean, yeah, decent fight, like I say. And I don't want to see Jonas against Shields. There were people talking about that. That's a terrible fight for Jonas. I don't want to see that. But yeah, great win for her. She's still, managed to turn her career around despite being in her late 30s. She's doing a brilliant job. And also on the card, Dalton Smith, now 13-0. It was a close kind of fight, I guess, at times against Casey Benjamin. I'm not sure how many rounds I gave Benjamin, but he was well in the fight and competitive every round, really. Dalton Smith just that little bit better, though, in all areas. It was a defence of Smith's British super lightweight title. Like I say, 13-0. Casey Benjamin now 16-2 with a draw. I'd like to see Benjamin come again. I think he can. He wasn't outclassed so much, and Dalton Smith, we're ranting and raving about how good he's going to be. Didn't look invincible against Benjamin, who, like I say, most people thought would get stopped. So yeah, I liked what I saw from Benjamin. I liked what I saw from Dalton Smith. After the fight, Dalton Smith's father and trainer Grant Smith, took a moment actually in the interview on the ring mat to say that he thinks Benjamin is world level and no one wanted to fight him, but we took the fight. And he mentioned that Dalton Smith was quite ill, I think, the week before the fight, and the fight wasn't supposed to happen, and he wanted to call it off, but they went with it anyway, and obviously got the win, and maybe didn't impress as much as he could have. But anyway, yeah, I like the fact that they gave a lot of credit there to Benjamin. What else did we have? Nothing on that undercard, but moving out now stateside to this one. It took place at the Palms Casino Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Over here, a top-ranked show. It was live on Sky Sports. No, sorry, it wasn't. It was on BT Sport in the UK. And I'm guessing ESPN in the US. On the undercard, one fight to mention, Sinisa Estrada, now 23-0, a unanimous decision there over 10 2-minute rounds against Jasmine Villarino, who's now 6-2 with 2 draws. It was a defense of Estrada's WBA minimum weight world title. I expected Estrada to maybe get the stoppage there, but she didn't. She went the distance. I don't remember watching any of that fight, I've got to be honest. And then the main event, Zanibek Alimkhanuly, and I think you can pronounce that about 7 different ways, depending on where you're from. He's now 13-0, a unanimous decision over 12 rounds, a defence of his WBO world middleweight title against Britain's very own Denzel Bentley, now 17-2 with a draw. Yeah, I mean, Bentley put up a decent fight. A lot of people felt he'd get stopped, and he'd probably get stopped as quick as he did against Felix Cash, or maybe even quicker, because Alimkhanuly's this monster that no one wants to fight. But Alim Kanuli, again, didn't look invincible here. I think he started well. It took Bentley quite a while to come out of his shell. He seemed like he was just there. I'm not sure what the game plan was. He was kind of standing there, very defensive-minded, and it's not really the way to win a fight, especially when you're away from home. You're a big puncher. You need to kind of, land something. You need to get the respect of Alim Kanuli. You need to, put him on the back foot maybe, and don't let him dictate everything. But it seemed like he was quite happy to just sit back at times. He tried a few different counters there, but there was a lot of tippy-tappy kind of shots. And I was just thinking to myself, he's going to lose this fight. Even if he doesn't get stopped, he's going to lose this fight within the first 4 rounds if he continues to fight like this. But he did eventually start opening up as the fight went on. And like I say, Alim Kanuli started breathing quite heavy and got caught a few times as well. But, the rightful winner in the end, Alim Kanuli, pretty much, very wide. A landslide win, really. But it wasn't that impressive because we all expected him to bang Denzel Bentley out, and that's not what happened. So, credit to him. Credit to Bentley as well. I think his stocks go up again with a loss. I think a lot of people are going to probably be quite excited to see him again. Terrible questions from Mark Kriegel in the ring afterwards, saying to Denzel Bentley that he looked a bit scared for the first few rounds. Was he scared, and was he surprised to be still there after 4 or 5 rounds? Just crazy questions. Like, you could tell Denzel Bentley was feeling so awkward. He was shaking his head. He didn't know what kind of questions they were. Mark Kriegel seemed like he hadn't thought anything through. And moving out now to the final card to mention, it took place at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. It was live on DAZN. Let's start with the undercard. Good win for prospect Raymond Ford, now 13-0 with a draw, a KO in round 8 there for the WBA Continental Americas featherweight title against Zakaria Lucas, now 25-2 with a draw. Lucas down in round 1 and in round 8. Richardson Hitchens as well with a win, 15-0, a defense of his IBF North American super lightweight title, an 8th round retirement win against Yomar Alamo, didn't want to come out for round 9. He's now 20-2 with a draw. Eddie, you came off mute, so I'm gonna come to you. What was you gonna say, my man?
Ray Ford, he looked good, and I'm not just saying that just because there's connection between me and his trainer, one of his trainers, and Coach Ant, but he really looked good. And the kid that the guy he fought was world level fighter, good banger. And the plan they had was to kind of reverse that, put him on the back foot, keep him going in reverse, and it worked. And Ray Ford looked exceptional, taking care of business in there. And I also liked some of the things that Hitchens was doing with the guy he was fighting. Honestly, though, it kind of gave me like some of the time, like his aggression and his ability was eventually going to win the fight over, and that's why he ended up, being on the stool at the end. However, there were certain things that I've seen with it. His punch selection could be a little bit better, and he was obviously trying to call out Montana Love, and Montana Love is talented and he's good. I mean, we're going to obviously get to that in a minute, but I honestly, from looking at Richardson Hitchens, I don't know for sure if with what I saw from that particular fight. Now, styles make fights, so that doesn't necessarily mean that he won't go in and he wouldn't be able to beat a Montana Love. But it was just as he looked in certain spots, punch selection would have to be a little bit better. He's got speed, he's got ability. I think he's got pretty decent pop, but I'm not sure how that would work with him. And I would have to that would be an interesting fight that I would want to see. So it's good that he called him out, but it's definitely interesting. But I think the star of the card, to be honest, from what I've seen up to that point, was Raymond Ford. He looked good. He stopped a guy who I don't even know, has he ever been stopped before? I don't even think he's been stopped before, and did it in an impressive fashion. It was good to see.
Yeah, and that's why I think, so many people rate Raymond Ford and say that he is one of the brightest prospects there is in world boxing. So yeah, moving on to the main event, Montana Love loses his O by disqualification. Now 18-1 with a draw. It went into round 6. Very controversial in the end, obviously. And the winner, Steve Spark, now 16-2. Montana Love down in round 2, and then obviously disqualified in the end for throwing Steve Spark over the top rope. I don't know if you saw this, Eddie. Did you see this by any chance?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was watching it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, as I said, Steve Spark was a puncher. I said it on last week's show. Australians don't always get the biggest of opportunities, and the fact that he's going to be traveling to the US, in a fight that there's a lot on the line for him, I knew he was going to bring it, and he did bring it. He really did. He was very, very aggressive from the get-go. It was quite an interesting fight, actually, because obviously we knew Montana Love has got his number skill for skill, and, Montana Love showed us some great counter-punching and stuff like that, but whenever Steve Spark would have a bit of success and he'd end up backing Montana Love onto the ropes, Montana would look really, really vulnerable, and in sometimes kind of have to run away, to stay off them ropes, because it was a place he didn't want to be. And like we say, in round 2, he touched down. He more than touched down. It was quite a heavy shot. He went down. I wasn't sure. It was one of those knockdowns when you see it, in real time. You see it, not in slow mo. The way he went down, I was like, oh, I don't know if he's getting up. It's one of those knockdowns where he could be out. And he did get back up. And to his credit, his legs look quite strong very quickly after being dropped and getting back up. So his recovery skills were good, but he was vulnerable many, many times, and he had to be on his A game really to win rounds. And then obviously the controversy that came in that final round was that there was an accidental head clash. The referee stops it because Montana Love sustains a cut. He goes over to the doctor. He says he couldn't see, but it was weird because I think most of the time, when a fighter says that, I think most of the time they can see. And it's like, in my eyes, I feel like they're trying to look for a way out of the fight, but they're still going to get paid. So a little bit of me kind of doesn't feel like it's that outrageous of a thing to try and pull, especially in a fight that's close. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But Montana Love said he couldn't see. The blood wasn't running into his eye. The cut seemed like it was, above his eyebrow. It was kind of streaming down the side of his face. I don't think it was too bad, and he was kind of saying I can kind of see, and he wasn't really sure what he was saying. I'm not sure. It's like he wanted to kind of, I guess, maybe go to the cards or get something done about it, but he didn't quite know what was going to happen, so he was being careful what he said at one point. And then he was going, oh no, I'm okay, I'm ready to carry on, from being able to not see to that. And I don't know what he was trying to do or what he was trying to come up with in his head. But the referee says he can't see, but we're going to give him another minute and see how it goes. So he sends him back out. Now obviously that was a really, really huge call from the doctor. But Montana Love went from not really seeming like he wanted it to carry on to wanting it to carry on, because there's every chance that I guess he might have realised he could have been down. He was dropped. He lost a 10-8 round. So in the end, they let it carry on. And then within that minute that they were keeping an eye on Love, that's when he gets disqualified. Obviously, there was, a moment of madness on the ropes. Montana Love did try and throw him. I don't think he meant to throw him out of the ring like that. The way he landed was nothing short of unbelievably professional. It's like the guy's been doing trampolining lessons, or maybe jumping out of planes with a parachute on for years and years. He landed like a pro, and he wasn't hurt at all. He rolled over, turned it into some kind of roll, and then he was straight back in the ring. It was so smooth, he couldn't have done it any smoother. But the referee abruptly decided to disqualify Spark, and it wasn't like it was a rough and tumble kind of affair or anything. It wasn't like Montana Love had been dirty throughout the fight, and then that was the final straw. It seemed very quick and very abrupt from the referee, especially with what had happened with the head clash and the fact that the doctor was keeping an eye on Love, not even a minute prior to this. It was so controversial, Eddie. I want to know what you thought of it as a professional yourself, and obviously the things that you've seen over the years. Boxing is, such a crazy sport, as I say almost every week, but I really thought Montana Love would win this fight, and I had a nice few bets on him to win the fight, and when he got DQ'd, I could not believe my eyes.
Yeah, man, it was one crazy scenario. a lot of events that occurred in that fight that you just wouldn't like. Wow, why did that even have to happen? But it was a rough kind of a fight. And like you said, Steve Spark brought it. He came to win. He wasn't coming there to just be on TV. He wasn't just coming there to say that I've done it. He was coming there to actually take something home. And put himself in position to maybe get a title shot at some point, or at least be a marquee name in boxing. You could just see it, and the knockdown. I don't want to say I saw it coming, but it was kind of, there was things that were going on even in the first round that Montana Love was doing, and some of the movements. And he's talented. He's got abilities. He's sliding. He's catching him with counter shots. You could just see he's the class of the ring. But it just looked to me like there was going to be a time that because I've seen him in previous fights make mistakes, get caught with good shots, and I'm thinking this is a puncher. This kid's a puncher, and he's coming to win. He's coming to take his position. And when the shot happened and he went down, I was like, oh shit. It's almost like I predicted it. Not necessarily that it happened right at the right time or when I expected it to happen. It was kind of like a shock, but it happened. It's kind of like I was expecting it. But then I was thinking, okay, well, let me see how Montana Love deals with it. Let's see you get up and get back to the boxing. But the things you were saying was almost perfect. It is exactly what I was saying. Every single time that Steve Spark allowed him to get in his zone, get into a spot, maybe back up a little bit, stay at range, he would lose. He was losing every moment of that. But as soon as he was aggressive, as soon as he started putting his front foot forward and started going in and attacking, Montana Love looked completely out of place. He looked like he didn't know what he wanted to do. He used some of those cute moves that he has, right, to get out of the way, but it looked like barely he was just getting out of the way of shots. It looked like he was so uncomfortable. Like he didn't really have a real place in there when the fight started coming to him. You understand what I'm saying? Like when he started bringing the fight to him, he didn't know what to do. And it was like, I'm thinking, damn, is this situation, like if they were to fight again, because obviously now we see it. If Steve Spark was there, literally just come out there and try to bang him out, would he be able to do it? And a lot of people say, well, no, I think, Montana Love is talented enough to be able to hold his own and get into a position where he could, counterpunch and possibly stop him. But I don't know. Just the way he reacted to the offense that Steve Spark was bringing, it was making me say, damn, I don't even know if he would be able to handle this guy if he just literally just threw caution to the wind and just kept going in and even though there were opportunities and there were times that Montana Love caught him with good shots coming in. Good shots, nice quick time shots, and counter left hands and stuff like that. It was good, but I really just didn't like his reaction to how Steve Spark was coming in. You understand what I'm saying? Like he was just not comfortable, and he just didn't look like he. And then at the end, it was a bit of frustration because the kid was working so hard. He was trying so hard to win. And, he got a little rough. He did some, some of the tactics were questionable, headbutts, stuff like that, because he's coming in hard. But he's just fighting hard. He's just trying to win. And you could see when it happened, he, kind of leaned over on Montana Love, and Montana Love got angry. You could see the anger and how the frustration just come up in him. And he kind of ran him into the ropes. And then, they were like kind of tussling a little bit. And he didn't necessarily mean to throw him over, but it just happened. And as it happened, he didn't really think much of it. But when the ref snapped that, oh no, that's a DQ, you're out of here type thing. It was a little hasty because he seemed pretty athletic on how he landed. And when he got back in the ring, I mean, you should just, I would say, okay, give him a hard warning, maybe take a point, maybe even take two, but don't take him out of the fight. You should give him the opportunity to come back in, because it wasn't like anybody got hurt. If it would have been like, if the kid would have went down and act like he hurt his leg or his neck or something, then that's a little different. But the fact that he jumped right back up in the ring and was ready to go shouldn't DQ him on that kind of a situation. You know what I mean? It would be different if it was some repeated fouls and things like that. Then yeah, you would say, okay, yeah, this guy's just doing it. He's trying to get out of here. But it was a one-time thing. It wasn't necessarily done intentionally. It's a quick reaction in a situation where there's so many things involved. There's money. There's opportunity for both fighters. The event itself, that was the main event. You don't want to just react too crazy. You know what I mean? Now they're gonna be looking at him as a ref like, yeah, we gotta be careful when we hire this guy. So we'll see what happens the rest of his reffing career, at least up to this point. I mean, this was a one-time thing, hopefully for him, but it kind of just took away from the excitement. And the fight was good energy in the fight. It was contested properly on both ends. They were really trying to win. There was a lot of questions that we didn't see answered yet, so it's unfortunate that we didn't see it. We didn't get a chance to see it through, but well, I mean, we did in a sense with the disqualification. But most people, who were watching what I said, I would have liked to have seen the fight go as far as it needed to go to declare an actual winner.
Yeah, and I just want to take a moment as well just to say that, credit to both guys. Obviously, Montana Love willing to carry on, not straight away, but willing to carry on, I think, obviously, with the cut, and credit as well to Steve Spark, who, as you say, could have gone down, could have started holding his head, whatever, and made a meal out of it, and definitely, tried to milk it, but he was ready to carry on as well. So I think credit to both guys for their willingness to carry on. It was actually the referee that seemed to be the major problem, which is a real shame, because we don't like to see referees become, a big problem and the main talking point of a fight, especially between two good fighters at the top level. But yeah, credit to Steve Spark in particular, because if he went out like that, he went over the rope like that, we know that if that was Bernard Hopkins, he would have gone down, landing on his foot and then saying his head hurts, or even landed on his head and pretending he couldn't walk, Eddie.
Bernard learned early that he's like, listen, that check is gonna be cashed regardless of what happens in this ring. If I could get out of here with one round and a hurt foot, quote unquote hurt foot, and make $1 million, I'm cool. So like you said, credit to them. But no, I gotta give big credit to Steve Sparks and Montana Love both for trying to make the fight and being willing to to go even in the face of some adversity. And the way he just got back up in the ring, you could tell he really wanted it. And it's a good thing to see with fighters when they really, really put that effort in.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I wonder if Bernard Hopkins ever would have fought, in an outdoors arena, if he ever did, in the open air. You could just imagine, if there was lightning in the sky that night, somehow that would catch him and he'd get a DQ. Lightning would get disqualified.
You're terrible, yo. Jesus.
Moving on. Actually, there is nothing to move on to. That is the end of the review part of the show. The final thing for me to do before we wrap up part 1 is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated super-middleweight contender, ranked number 1 in the world with the WBO. It is, of course, friend of the show, Mr. Zach Parker. Zach, welcome back on the show, my man.
Yeah, good to be back, mate. How are you?
Very well, my friend. Very well. Thanks for asking. So we last spoke back in March. At that time, you were about 8 weeks away from fighting in Derby against Demetrius Andrade. Obviously, it would have been an unbelievable night in Derby, but sadly, the fight fell through. Let's start with that briefly. Was that a tough one to deal with, Zach? I'm guessing it must have been.
Yeah. It was hard at the time, obviously. First time fighting in front of the Derby crowd. And, at my beloved football ground, Pratt Park, but obviously everything happens for a reason, and where we're at now, fighting John Ryder 26, so makes out for a better fight, I reckon. Obviously, Andrade, I think, been having chase.
Oh, I think I've lost you.
Hello?
Sorry, Zach, you went away for a few seconds there.
Yeah, obviously, I was saying, obviously with the Andrade fight, I reckon I'd have been chasing him, and now with the John Ryder fight, it makes out for a better fight because he's going to meet me in the middle, and it's going to make out for a much better fight for the fans.
Yeah, I think stylistically it's going to be more exciting. Yeah, it's just a shame. Obviously, the Andrade fight was supposed to happen a couple of times. It ended up keeping you inactive. Yeah, so as you touched on it, you're going to be boxing John Ryder at the O2. Firstly, as I just mentioned there, you're coming off a whole year now of inactivity. Do you believe in ring rust, Zach?
No, to be fair, I've done it all my life, so I know how to keep yourself like in top condition, and obviously it's sparring that helps, and I do a lot of sparring. I've been doing a lot of sparring, so yeah. I don't really believe in ring rust. Obviously, sparring helps and that, so yeah. I should be fine on November 26th.
And 2 of your last 3 fights have been in London. You've boxed at the Copper Box, you've boxed at the Royal Albert Hall. Both of those 2 performances as well were arguably your 2 career best. You stopped Sherzod Kurzanov in just a round, then Vaughan Alexander in just 2 rounds. Both guys had never been stopped before. This time you'll be boxing at the O2 Arena. London isn't exactly close to Derby, but it seems like you're making it your home. Yeah,
no stranger to boxing there. So obviously, the O2, it's mad that I'm actually headline there, never mind boxing. Never been there until my press conference, so yeah, should be a good night for me.
And the fight itself, obviously, it's an excellent fight. Do you anticipate it, though, Zach, to be the most difficult challenge of your career thus far?
Yeah, 100%. He's probably the best person I've boxed so far. He's been in there with a lot of good people like of Callum Smith, Danny Jacobs, Billy Joe. You know, a lot of people have been around the block. So yeah, should be probably my hardest fight. But I can make it easy if I box to my game plan.
Yeah. And how do you see the fight playing out? Obviously, Ryder has improved so much over the last few years. He's coming off that career best win last time out against Danny Jacobs. It seems like he's in the best form of his career at the minute.
Yeah. Watching like the Dan Jacobs fight, it was a close fight. Obviously, Jacobs coming towards the end of his career now, or he's pretty much finished. But nevertheless, it was a really good win for John Ryder. But I just believe I'm coming into my prime, and I'm 28, going on 29, and this is recognising me the best in the world.
And am I right in saying, Zach, that you've never boxed a southpaw as a pro? Is that a fact?
I couldn't even say, to be fair. I'm not even thought about it. I'm not even. Probably not, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had a good look, and I was thinking, I was looking for every single person, and from what I could see, I don't think you'd been in with a southpaw as a pro. That's something I was able to dig up there.
Yeah.
The fight, Zach's obviously for the WBO interim super-middleweight world title. We had John on the show a couple weeks back, and I said the same thing to him. Surely the winner gets Canelo. Surely.
Yeah. That's the aim. That's the big fight out here. What all the super-middleweights want at the minute. Likes of Benavidez plan. They're getting it together to fight each other, so the winner can get Canelo as well. So. Yeah, that's the aim. That's what I want. Even if it ain't Canelo, I just want the world title. This is one step closer to it. Obviously, interim world title, and if Canelo goes up to fight Bivol again and vacates the WBO, the winner of this gets made straight world champion. So yeah, it's a really big fight for me, and I need to be switched on.
Yeah, 100,000,000%. And I feel that sometimes in the past, Zach, maybe you've been a bit too impressive with a win. And I was going to ask you, do you ever sometimes in the back of your mind kind of think, if you win a bit too impressively, it can sometimes do you more harm than good because it can make people run a million miles in the opposite direction?
Yeah, that's the thing, innit? It can deter people from fighting, yeah. But I'm only going out there and doing my job, innit? So if people can't stand up to obviously my power or anything, we're now with a big fight. I've been waiting for a big fight, and I need to take it with both hands. It's hopefully win this, and then try and get if Canelo vacates, try and get the world title back in Derby and get the Pride Park fight again.
Yeah, we'd love to see it happen. And just finally, my final real question for you, Zach. I wanted to ask, if you do have one, what your final prediction would be for November the 26th. I know you hate going the distance. To get a stoppage against John would be super impressive, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm just going to be ready for the whole 12 rounds. If the stoppage comes, I'll take it with both hands like I have done in the past. But yeah, if Zach Parker win either points or knockout, it don't matter how it comes to me, as long as I walk out of that ring with the belt.
There we go. And just finally, if you've got any closing words, Zach, for the listeners before we let you go. It's not been the smoothest of phone calls. We've been broke up a couple of times, but hopefully we get this last message clearly.
Yeah. Just obviously tune into the fight or buy tickets. There's still tickets available. There's a really good undercard on the show as well. Likes of Dennis Khan, Shiraz. But the main bill, a lot of people are talking about it, and it should make out for a great fight. He's going to come bring it. I'm going to come bring it, and may the best man win.
Yeah, of course. It's going to be a brilliant card. It's going to be a brilliant show. And I'm going to say the main event is certainly better than the main event that Eddie Hearn, I think, put together for the same night, which is annoying. But I think if you've got one TV, we all know which fight we're going to be tuning into. Just finally, Zach, I wanted to say it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. You know that yourself. Best of luck November 26th, and we'll catch up sometime afterwards.
Nice one, mate. Cheers for having me on again.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. What do we have here? 2 pieces of news. Let's start with this one. There's a card that's been announced for December the 3rd. It's a Matchroom card. We're going to see Julio Cesar Martinez defending his WBC flyweight world title against Samuel Carmona. That's going to be at the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. That's going to be the co-main event for that trilogy fight between Juan Francisco Estrada and Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. So it's great to have Martinez on the card as well, despite the fact I'd love to see him in with Sonny Edwards, but for whatever reason it seems like it can't happen. Boxer and Ben Shalom as well have announced a card for December 17th. It's quite a good card, actually. I think they're billing it the Christmas Cracker. I think the main event fight, if I'm not mistaken, is Chris Billum-Smith. He gets in with a guy called Armand. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that surname, and you know how brave I like to get with my pronunciations. I just go for it without a care in the world, but I'm not going to go for that one. I've got no idea where to start with it, but the guy's first name is Armand. So he's 14-2. That's about all I can say. On the undercard, a brilliant fight, by the way, at light heavyweight. We've got Dan Aziz 17-0 getting in with Rocky Fielding. So that is a really good fight, I think, there. Rocky Fielding probably at the tail end of his career, but he's been so inactive that I don't really know what he's got left, and it'd be interesting because at one point he was a decent fighter. What else do we have on the card? We've got Vidal Riley getting on the card as well. We've also got Caroline Dubois on the card. I think that's about it really for the big names. That's it though for the news part of the show. Moving on now to the preview part. We're going to start here with this one. It takes place tomorrow night at the Techport Arena in San Antonio, Texas. Over here, friend of the show, Hector Tanahara, 19-1 with a draw. The one loss, of course, came to William Zepeda. This is a 6-rounder here against Antonio Mejia, who's 10-4. All the best there to Hector Tanahara. Moving out now to France at the La Palastre in Le Canet in France. It's a terrible accent pronunciation.
That wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad, Joe. I mean, I couldn't do it any better.
Over here we have Milan Pratt, who is 17-0, getting in with Stephen Danyo, who's 20-5 with 3 draws. That's over 12 for the vacant EBU European Super Welterweight title. We've got Kevin Lele Saggio, 18-0, getting in with Emre Kukur, who's 19-1 with a draw over 12 rounds for the EBU European Super-Middleweight title. And the main event, Arsen Gulamirian, 26-0. He holds the WBA Super World Cruiserweight title. Do not ask me who he fought to win the belt, because I couldn't tell you, but he does hold the super title with the WBA at cruiserweight, and he gets in with the undefeated Alexei Egorov, who is 11-0 there. That's over 12 rounds, of course. That'd be a good fight, I think. I think Egorov was one of those good amateurs that turned over. I wonder if he's the favorite. I'm going to look into that. Moving out now to Mexico at the Distrito Federal in Mexico City. Over here, friend of the show, former IBF world champion Carlos Molina, 38-12 with 2 draws, gets in with Oziel Santoyo, who's 13-2 with a draw. It's over 10 rounds there at super welterweight. Carlos Molina, top of the bill, but also the promoter of the show. Decent undercard as well. A couple fighters on there that have been in big fights before. What else do we have? Moving out now to another part of Mexico. This one in Guadalajara over here. Main event, Jaime Munguia. It's going to be on the zone. 40-0. He gets in with Gonzalo Correa over 10 rounds. Correa 21-5. Really just not sure what Munguia seems to be doing. Obviously, it was excellent that he became world champion at 154, and he was on a hell of a run, like wow. And then when he decided to make the move to 160, it's been so slow. I think the best fighter he's boxed at that weight would have been probably Gabe Rosado, if I'm not mistaken. I can't even think. He's had such a really quite poor run of opponents, I think he even had the fight with Jimmy Kelly as well, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure he got him with Jimmy Kelly. So he's had such a poor run, and I just don't get what he's doing. At this point, I'm starting to think he's given up any desire of being a world champion again, to instead maybe chase the Mayweather 50-0 record or something. I mean, he's at 40-0. He was never going to be a guy that was going to go on forever with his style. He loves to take punches in the face like no other fighter. But it's just a bizarre one again, and it's just another completely pointless fight in the career of Munguia, who I think has got a lot better as time goes on. Actually, I talk about him loving to take punches in the face, but I think his all-round game has been increasing really over the last maybe 2 years. But I say that, when you look at the guys he's been in with in that time, maybe that's why he looks a bit better, because he's not fighting the same caliber of opponents, I don't think. And I've got no idea why. I think he was given the opportunity to get a mandatory shot straight away, because that's the rule with the WBO. When you move up and vacate, you get elevated straight into that position. But I don't think he wanted the shot. Just cannot work out what he's doing. Moving out now to the Telford International Centre in Shropshire. This is in the UK. It's going to be on BT Sport. Over here we've got Anthony Yard, friend of the show, 22-2. I think we're going to see him box Artur Beterbiev for the world title, I believe, in maybe January or February. But he gets in a little keep busy fight with Stefani Koikov, who is 14-1. I think he was stopped in his one loss, but it was early on in his career. He's got 12 KO wins, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't think he's going to have anything to offer Anthony Yard. Maybe it might be exciting because he can punch a bit, but I expect Anthony Yard probably to bang him out within 4 or 5 rounds. When I've looked at the records of the people that this guy's beaten, it's really quite bad records. Most, I think, were losing records. Elsewhere on the card, we've got Ethan James, 9-0 in a 10-rounder for the WBO European Super Lightweight title against Conor Parker, who's 14-1. Could be a good fight there. And the main event, Liam Davies, 12-0. It's for the EBU European Super Bantam and WBC International Super Bantamweight titles. He gets in with Ian Baluta, who's 15-3. Baluta's a good fighter, obviously. We've seen him mainly, I guess, his bigger fights have been his losses, when he lost to the likes of Michael Conlan but gave him a good fight. Lost a majority decision to him, obviously. I say that. He was on a bit of a run. He beat a few Irish fighters like David Oliver Joyce, TJ Doheny. That was a huge upset when he beat Doheny. And yeah, he beat Brad Foster as well last time out. So he's on a bit of a run, to be totally honest with you. I've seen him sparring with Archie Sharp myself in person, and he's a good fighter here. And he gets in with Liam Davies. It's going to be a tough fight, that one there. I expect it to definitely go the distance, I'd say. It could be close. I think Baluta's a bit of a nightmare. He doesn't really stop throwing punches. He comes and comes and comes. Moving out now to the entertainment and sports arena in Washington, D.C. over here. Friend of the show, Dusty Hernandez Harrison. He was set to fight, wasn't he, at one point, and then his father was, I think, murdered, and he was still going to fight on the weekend, but the fight ended up falling through, and probably for good reason, really. I don't think he would have been in the right mind frame, but he gets in here. Apparently, anyway, there's still no opponent yet. He's 34-0 with a draw. He was a welterweight when he was at the top of his game, and he's now at cruiserweight, which is unbelievable. What else do we have? Moving out now to the McBride Hall in Gary, Indiana. Over here, friend of the show, Mary McGee, former world champion. No opponent just yet for her, but she's scheduled to fight. Her record 27-4. Hopefully she does get a fight. And then the final card to mention, it's just one fight to mention, at the Moody Theater in Austin, Texas, USA. Over here, top of the bill, I think it is, Greg Hardy 1-0 in a 4-rounder against Hassim Rahman Jr. 12-1. I didn't know if this was going ahead, because obviously we were supposed to be seeing Vitor Belfort get in with Hassim Rahman Jr. Hassim Rahman Jr. was going to have the chance to beat Belfort back on behalf of boxing after what he did to 75-year-old Evander Holyfield when Donald Trump did the commentary that night. That was just an unbelievable night, never to be forgotten in boxing history. Sad that Evander lost, but unbelievable to have Donald Trump on commentary, and all the people chanting Trump, 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 or whatever the boxing fans were saying in that particular venue. I want to see him on commentary again, actually. But anyway, Greg Hardy steps in, late replacement, because Vitor Belfort has COVID-19. So yeah, all the best to Vitor Belfort in his recovery from that, but it's not really the fight we wanted to see. There was rumours it was going to be Shannon Briggs, and I think a lot of people were thinking, wow, Shannon Briggs against Hassim Rahman Jr., wow, that's going to be kind of cool. But we're getting Greg Hardy, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know who Greg Hardy is. I don't know. He's 1-0 as a pro, if I'm not mistaken. Never heard of him up until about 5 minutes ago, so I don't know how good he is. I'm expecting Hassim Rahman to win and hopefully take him out. Obviously, friend of the show. That's about it, though, for the show. In part 1, we did the review part. We welcomed our special guest. And in part 2, we did the news part. And I've just wrapped up the preview part. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 370 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A special thank you to our special guest, the undefeated WBO #1 ranked super middleweight in the world, Mr. Zach Parker. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. It really, really does. Once again, if you do have a spare minute or two, please leave us a review on iTunes. That really means a lot to us. That's like the best thing you can do for us. We do a free podcast every week. If you could just give us 2 minutes just to leave a review on iTunes, it would be massively appreciated. That's about everything from myself, though. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.